Democrats protect the Secretary of State from an audit over her office's leak of voting machine passwords. President-elect Donald Trump wants to end birthright citizenship. Colorado's experts on immigration look at the likelihood he'll succeed.
I don't see that happening at the moment.
Finally, some good news about local news. A win for the people keeping community journalism alive across America. And you've waited patiently. Tonight it's here. Next annual holiday ornament. Chances are it only offends 4 out of 10 people, which is pretty good if you ask me. That's tonight on Next. The latest whoops from the Secretary of State's office will not be audited by the state. Democratic legislators voted down a proposed audit today. They say that it's enough that Secretary of State Jena Griswold hired a law firm to investigate her office's leak of voting system passwords. Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold released the results of that third-party investigation today. The law firm Baird Quinn was brought in to examine how in the world an employee in her office posted voting machine passwords in a public spreadsheet, albeit on a hidden tab, and left them online there for months. The law firm's report says the passwords were posted by mistake, but that Griswold's office violated state information security policies by not reviewing the document more closely. The report offered the kind of basic advice you would hope that people holding voting machine passwords would not need. Stuff like, you should use strong passwords and don't put your passwords in public places. Griswold says her office will now implement those recommendations. It's not the first time that an error by Griswold's office has impacted voter confidence. She previously sent tens of thousands of voter registration invitations to people who do not have the legal right to vote. She also mistakenly told Coloradans who had voted that they had not voted. Republicans on a legislative audit committee cited that history of errors in asking for the audit.
We've seen over the last years some fairly systemic and problematic issues in the Secretary of State's office when it comes to communication with clerk and recorders, who are really the feet on the ground when it comes to elections. We've seen issues with respect to mailings and communication with citizens.
That audit request failed on a party line vote. Republicans in favor, Democrats opposed. Should mention the Denver District Attorney's Office is still investigating that password leak. If you are born in Colorado, you can call yourself a native, even put it on a bumper sticker if you choose. If you're born in the United States, you are an American, even if both of your parents are not here legally. That's birthright citizenship. President-elect Donald Trump says he wants to get rid of birthright citizenship. Our Angeline McCall looks at the piece of paper stopping Trump, the U.S. Constitution.
Promises from Washington, D.C. that would impact mixed-status families.
Promise to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trump re-emphasized in an NBC interview his plans to revoke birthright citizenship.
There are some fairly strict requirements that have to be followed for a constitutional amendment.
DU law professor Ian Farrell says in order to change the 14th Amendment, Trump would need support of a supermajority, 2/3 of both the House and Senate.
I don't see that happening at the moment.
Plus, ratification by 38 states.
Both of those are extremely challenging in any context, but especially in the context of the current sort of polarization and lack of bipartisan support.
Conservatives are questioning the language of the 14th Amendment. They argue the words subject to the jurisdiction thereof, saying they exclude immigrants who entered without documentation.
I don't think it's a strong theory at all. I think that there are few things that are clearer in the Constitution than that everyone has birthright citizenship.
The threat made by Trump is one immigrant advocates like Raquel Lane Arellano are taking seriously.
What's really scary is that it's a slippery slope. When you start to take away basic rights from one group, it makes it easier to take away those basic protections from everyone, which is the example here, right, with birthright citizenship. So I think it would devastate Colorado, and there are thousands of families in Colorado that would be impacted. Hundreds of thousands.
Advocates are seeing families prepare for the worst-case scenarios in a situation law experts say is unlikely, but not totally impossible.
I would feel, to be honest, that if the U.S. Supreme Court were to say that birthright citizenship does not extend to people who entered the country without the appropriate documents, we basically don't have a constitution anymore at that point.
Those words being used to argue this case in the jurisdiction thereof have largely been agreed to that in the past it refers to people outside of the United States, so for instance diplomats or ambassadors, not the immigrant community. Kyle.
So when these experts are talking about this going to the Supreme Court, they're talking about a scenario in which there's not a constitutional amendment, but basically where Trump or his allies stop recognizing birthright citizenship and basically say, so sue us, take us to court if we won't give a passport to an immigrant child or something like that.
Yeah, that's what Professor Farrell was saying essentially, is that is sort of, his concern is that he says it goes through the courts and he says, well, I'm going to do it my way. I want to do it this way. I think I'm right anyways. That's a totally different situation than what we know to be true right in the past when you actually follow the process to get an amendment like this changed.
Yeah, if the court were to do that, it certainly would upend 100+ years of legal scholarship on that issue. Angeline, thank you very much. Tonight, Denver City Council is going to decide whether some guardrails needed to be added to a taxpayer-funded initiative that treats drug addiction and mental health issues in the city. A recent investigation raised questions about whether that funding is being used appropriately. Last week, a Colorado Public Radio investigation explored concerns about the Caring for Denver sales tax initiative. It generates more than $40 million a year to fund mental health supports and drug treatment. The CPR investigation found those funds were doled out indiscriminately, sometimes to organizations without proper licenses or experience. The report also says the nonprofit in charge of the funding, the Caring for Denver Foundation, refused to turn over information about how their grantees were approved or audited. This investigation, by CPR's always excellent Ben Marcus, came out just as the Caring for Denver contract with the city was up for a 5-year renewal. Tonight, council will consider a proposal to re-up it for 1 year. Goal would be to give council time to review how the funding is spent. Councilwoman Jamie Torres says not renewing the contract at all wasn't an option.
I've got a number of grantees in my district, Council District 3, West Denver. I know the good work that they do. City of Denver is a grantee. It funds STAR, it funds the co-responder program. So it wasn't an option for us either to just deny the contract because there's a lot of really good work that's happening out there.
Denver has 2 other sales tax funds. They support education. They're also overseen by nonprofits. Councilwoman Torres says the city will review their transparency measures as well. I'm not saying that Democratic State Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis is hard to work for, but she is no longer allowed to have taxpayer-paid aides because of accusations that she used and abused them. Now a group of legislative aides at the Capitol want her to leave the building. Our partners at Colorado Politics report the Political Workers Guild is demanding her resignation. Short of that, the union wants Senate Democrats to open an ethics investigation, and Senate leadership, the Democrats, are on board with that idea. The union says Jaquez Lewis does not show basic respect and decency to others. Earlier this year, Democrats in leadership removed her from a committee leadership post. So it's Monday. It's time to thank you again for what you have done for yet another nonprofit in Colorado. Your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign raised more than $45,000 for Nourish Meals on Wheels, specifically their 12 Days of Giving program, where their volunteers each year bring gifts along with meals to seniors who are stuck at home across the metro area, from Jeffco to Dougco. Your weekly microgiving, $13.7 million worth, has impacted nonprofits in every corner of our state, 234 weeks and counting. If you know of a nonprofit doing tremendous work that could use our help together, email me, next@9news.com, or you can text next, 303-871-1491. What a damn mess. No agreement on what to do with a major water storage expansion, so environmentalists want the whole thing scrapped.
And we're the ones that are at the city council meetings, the school board meetings, the events, the parades, all of that. And so
news tonight that will literally keep the presses running, covering untold stories across Colorado. And hey, a reminder, you can also catch Next streaming each night at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus, and Next is now a podcast. Each weeknight, find us wherever you get your podcasts. Denver is building like crazy these days, and with that comes a lot of new parking, even if it doesn't always seem like it when you're circling for a spot. The city may scrap its parking requirements for new buildings. The thought would be allow more housing to be built in more places. The city's now shared what it's calling its Modernizing Parking Requirements Project, a plan to remove the current minimum parking requirements. Right now, the city requires most new apartments to have 1 space per unit. Restaurants must have 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. The city says most developers end up adding more parking than they need. That drives up rent costs and limits the number of housing units. City leaders say under the new rules, developers would just build the number of parking spaces they see fit. They also hope that removing red tape will save the city time spent on making sure that developers are following those parking rules. This still has to go through City Council. A massive reservoir expansion project going on in Boulder County has an uncertain future because earlier this year, a federal judge said the environmental review of the Gross Reservoir expansion was insufficient. Now environmentalists are asking the court to just call off construction. Denver Water has already started expanding and raising that dam to triple the reservoir's capacity. The project will require flooding 400 acres of land, taking out 500,000 trees. In October, a judge ruled that the Army Corps of Engineers didn't do enough to evaluate less environmentally damaging options, or they didn't really look at whether building that larger reservoir is even necessary. The judge gave Denver Water and environmentalists opposing the project until last Friday to come up with an agreement. That did not happen. Environmentalists are now asking the judge to halt the project immediately while she comes up with a lasting ruling. Denver Water says if they stop construction, that could be dangerous. So after nearly 25 years, a more affordable ski area will open this weekend in Colorado. Cuchara Mountain Park down in Huerfano County closed in 2020. It can now reopen thanks to a $250,000 federal tourism grant to Panadera Ski Corporation, a nonprofit that's partnered with that ski area. According to their website, you can get a day pass for $40, season pass for $150. They will open up on Saturday. Kathy, that's been a long time coming down there in Huerfano County. A lot of people in the community have tried and failed over the years to get that little ski hill back up and running. I shouldn't say little ski hill. It's not like a Summit County style resort, but it's still a decent little sized mountain that used to be up and running decades ago.
And those are the fun resorts to visit, you know, just the ones that maybe aren't the first on your list, but little out of the way ones which have so much character and have been here for so very long. So that is wonderful news. And we've got snow falling in that area tonight and another round of mountain snow on Thursday to help them in their efforts to get up and going and open this week. Some folks were literally skiing on I-25 this morning southbound around Castle Rock and Castle Pines. There was a little bit of snow on the roadway and a lot of accidents this morning. We're seeing scattered snow showers in the metro area. Roads are mainly wet right now. We started at 22 degrees today, warm to 35, 10 degrees colder than average. We're down to 28 in the city now, and the wind continues to pick up out of the north, and that will be a feature for us tomorrow. Even with clearing tomorrow, we will have a chilly and windy day. So metro snow showers tonight, accumulating snow in the foothills and mountains to the south, where a winter weather advisory will remain in effect through the overnight hours for areas like the Wet Mountain Range and the Sangre de Cristo Range. We have this little burst of snow coming out of Boulder and Broomfield into Denver, and then things will wind down. We clear out overnight tonight, and then temperatures will drop. Evergreen, Conifer, Castle Rock, and Kiowa in a winter weather advisory until 10 o'clock for a couple inches of snow. It's the Walsenburg, Trinidad stretch down there, up to 9 inches possible as this winter weather advisory goes out through tomorrow morning. Bullseye for the heavier snow, again in those areas shaded in the light blue. That's where we'll see the biggest impact. Light snow for Denver, maybe half an inch or so, with another 1.5 inches in the foothill areas from Golden down to the Palmer Divide. We'll gradually see clearing from north to south overnight tonight, and temperatures are going to drop like a rock into the mid-teens. We get you some sunshine tomorrow after a very cold overnight period. After tomorrow, though, we're back to sunshine in 50s, and that forecast will carry us right into the upcoming weekend.
Local news is in crisis in this country.
Printing press closure in Pueblo left local news up and down the Front Range in real trouble until now. And by popular request, it's your 2024 next holiday ornament. The actual one isn't blurred out like that. When Gannett shut down the Pueblo Chieftains printing press last year, that created a ripple effect for dozens of local publications. For some, finding another press just wasn't possible until a national nonprofit stepped in to fill the gap.
We're starting off today. We're going to be printing our Arvada Press papers. This is one of our first papers that printed on our new press here in Colorado. My name is Kevin Smalley. I'm the production director here at the Trust Press in Denver, Colorado. I love the artistic part of it. I love the color that we're rendering. I love dealing with the customers and trying to help them fulfill the needs for their communities. So if you look over here, you'll see that we have our DGM 430 press. We can average about 17,000 copies printed an hour. Currently, we are working doing hand inserting. We have a bunch of temporary workers here, and they've been here for the last couple of weeks, working 3 days a week, inserting our publications.
We really found that there was a need for, based on the fact that a lot of printers have closed and a lot of smaller independent publishers were really struggling with having some sort of affordable solutions or even being able to stay in print. Emily Nash, Head of Transformation, National Trust for Local News. This is the new printing facility that's been stood up by the National Trust for Local News as an affordable printing solution both for Colorado Community Media's newspapers and for publishers across the Front Range. Right now we're printing all of Colorado Community Media's titles, which is 24 weeklies and monthlies, and then we're going to be moving into bringing other publishers on board in the new year. People really want those printed papers on the doorstep, in addition to the digital newsletters, the alerts on your phone, all of that. And so we started working with funding partners and others in the ecosystem to say, is there the demand for this? Is there some philanthropic help we can get? And it coalesced into this project. We raised around $900,000 in philanthropic capital, almost close to $1 million at this point. Our goal for this project is $1.7 million, so we continue to fundraise. And I think there's still value in delivering products in the way people want them. I still think that local news is so critically important, and it's the lifeblood of a community.
A lot of folks feel print is dead. Print is not dead. It's important to your local community. With so many newspapers closing their production facilities and us being bucking that trend and opening a facility here in Denver, I think is an important step.
So I hope people that see this, see it as a marker of the importance of local news, the commitment that we have to local news, and the fact that we need community support to keep that going.
The Trust for Local News anticipates printing for 50 to 60 different publications at that facility next year. We are back with your feedback and the next holiday ornaments. Marilyn's like, why are you showing it to me? I made that, Kyle. Yes, Marilyn made the ornament. It's delightful. You'll see it next. A couple weeks back, just as the Clark family was hanging ornaments on our Christmas tree, I started to hear from Next viewers wondering when our annual holiday ornament would be released. Well, guess what? Here she is. Happy Howlidays. Might be a little tough to see, but it commemorates one of the most talked about stories of 2024. You'll remember the video for sure when the governor loosed those wolves up in Grand County with the CPW officers standing by with those plywood shields to direct the wolves away from eating the governor's face. So that's the ornament with a few of our own festive touches to the scene. Same deal as always, you can print out that beauty at home. The directions for putting it together and the ornament are on our website. Do it with the family. It's a great bonding activity. You can find this year's ornament and the last 4 years worth of ornaments on the next section of 9news.com. It starts with the wood circle ornament from my pandemic era basement studio in 2020. You put this one on the tree right next to last year's tribute to our meteorologist, Crispy Donkey. That's a good one, too. Finish with the text feedback tonight. Somebody texts in, do you have any plans for tonight? Let me know. Sir or ma'am, you're looking for Next, which is the old dating show on MTV. This is Next, the news show on Channel 9.